to COVID-19, our resilience as a destination has enabled us to adapt and innovate. Today, we are witnessing significant recovery with an increase in visitor numbers. People are traveling to Anguilla. Locals are enjoying what we have to offer, from our beaches, rich culture, and exceptional hospitality. However, while we celebrate these advancements, we must remain committed to sustainable practices that ensure the long-term health and vibrancy of our tourism industry. Sustainable development is essential, and it requires a collective approach. By uniting our efforts across government, private sector, and community stakeholders, we can create a tourism model that not only attracts visitors, but also enriches the lives of our residents. This means prioritizing eco-friendly initiatives, supporting local businesses, and investing in our natural resources to safeguard them for future generations. As always, your voice matters in this dialogue. Today, at this update, we are happy to engage with each of you on how you can contribute to ministerial policies and decisions. Whether you are part of our audience physically or joining us via our live stream, you will receive first-hand information from the following: the Tourism Sector Unit, the Anguilla Tourist Board, the management and staff of the Anguilla Air and Seaport Authority, ground transport operators, the Anguilla culinary experiences, beach vending processes, and much more. You all are an integral part of our discussions, planning, and progression. Together, we can foster a tourism sector that promotes cultural preservation, environmental stewardship, and social responsibility. We are all stewards of this beautiful island, and it is our shared duty to protect and celebrate what makes Anguilla truly special. As we move forward, let us embrace collaboration and communication among all of our industry partners and contributors. By sharing insights, best practices, and lessons learned, we can build a more sustainable, inclusive, and vibrant tourism sector that benefits everyone. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication. Together, let us continue to build a resilient tourism industry that honors our past and paves the way forward towards a prosperous future. Thank you, and happy World Tourism Day.
Thank you, Ms. Robin Williams, for your invaluable insights. We are now honored to hear from the Honorable Minister of Infrastructure, Communications, Utilities, Housing, and Tourism, Mr. Hayden Hughes, who will deliver special remarks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Benjamin, and it's good to see our Junior Minister of Tourism here, and hopefully we'll be able to dialogue and exchange ideas and insight. They say that the youth is the future, but I believe the youth is now, and together we can do great things in Anguilla. Good morning. It is a great honor to address you today on this special occasion as we celebrate World Tourism Day under the theme Tourism and Peace, and the first annual tourism sector update that is led by the Tourism Unit at the Ministry of Infrastructure and Tourism. I like to say the Ministry of Tourism and Infrastructure because tourism drives all things. This year's theme, Tourism and Peace, resonates deeply as we reflect on the vital role our industry plays in fostering understanding and harmony both locally and globally. Today, we celebrate not only the beauty and culture of our beloved Anguilla, but also the spirit of collaboration that drives our tourism sector forward. Our vision emphasizes a sustainable and inclusive future for our island, which inspires our commitment to enhancing the tourism experience while ensuring that the benefits of our industry are felt by everyone residing, visiting, and investing in Anguilla. We are determined to cultivate a thriving tourism sector that uplifts our communities, safeguards our national treasures, and highlights the rich cultural heritage that defines Anguilla. From our stunning beaches to the warm hospitality, delectable cuisine, luxurious properties, charming escapes, and vibrant activities, we proudly showcase what makes Anguilla uniquely special. I am proud to share some significant strides and achievements. We have prioritized investments in infrastructure, such as development of new roads, the building of our new cargo building, the development of our new ferry terminal and cultural center, and construction towards the newly state-of-the-art airport. These developments are crucial as we welcome visitors who seek to experience the warmth and hospitality that we are known for. We have partnered with the Anguilla Enhancement Project to enhance our paradise through funding for the removing of derelict vehicles, and we will also beautifying the island with a completely revamped approach to manicuring our roadsides. Furthermore, our commitment to sustainable tourism practices is evident through various initiatives, including eco-friendly projects that partners with local businesses. We are dedicated to protecting our environment, which is one of our greatest assets. This commitment aligns with our vision for the tourism industry that thrives in harmony with nature. In terms of tourism statistics, we have seen a steady increase in visitor arrivals. This resurgence reflects not only our resilience, but also the dedication of everyone in this room. So to this, we say thank you. In May's visitor arrival data, it showed that 18,116 visitors graced Anguilla shores, an increase of 52.9% over the corresponding May 2023 figure of 11,850. This figure under review is recorded as the highest number of visitors for any May period to Anguilla for the past 32 years. These record-breaking numbers were also reflected in January, February, and March, and we expect continued growth. As I said at the groundbreaking ceremony to mark the commencement of the development of the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport, get ready. Truly, we must get ready. The success of our tourism sector is a collective effort. Your commitment, creativity, and hard work is instrumental in shaping the experiences we offer our visitors. Each stakeholder, whether it is hospitality, transportation, the arts, or otherwise, play a vital role in making the Anguilla experience in Anguilla a premier destination. As we move forward, let us remain focused on our shared goals and continue to work together. Your voices are essential in shaping the discussions that guide our planning and progression. We must embrace innovation, engage in meaningful dialogue, and adapt to the ever-evolving landscape of global tourism. In closing, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to each of you for your unwavering dedication to our tourism industry. Together, we can build a sustainable and prosperous future for Anguilla, where tourism not only enhances the economy, but also enriches the lives of our residents. Happy World Tourism Day, a celebration of our achievements and a commitment to our shared vision for the future. May God continue to bless Anguilla, and may God continue to bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Hughes, for your continued leadership in Anguilla's tourism sector. We will now hear from Ms. Jolene Robin Williams, who will be presenting on the strategic direction of the tourism units.
Thank you again, Ms. Benjamin, and good morning again to everyone. Okay. So I am happy to provide an update on our unit, the tourism unit, which is located physically in this building, the Ministry of Infrastructure and Tourism. And previously, many of you may have known the Ministry of Tourism to be in the Ministry of Finance. However, over the past years, we are now here, and we are more than excited to provide you with this update. So the ministry comprises of myself, the tourism planner, Jolene Robin Williams, and Ms. Sarah Lee Benjamin, the product development officer. Together, we formed a team that you communicate often with, and we formed a team that supports you with all of your projects, supported by our permanent secretary, who's now acting, Mr. Travis Carty, under the leadership of our Honorable Minister of Tourism, Mr. Hayden Hughes. Who are we? Who are we in Anguilla? We are a premier Caribbean destination known for our world-class beaches, pristine azure waters, top-class resorts and restaurants, and relaxed ambience, sense of place, peace, and tranquility in a safe setting among a friendly and hospitable people that take pride in their identity, cultural heritage, and environment. So this is the vision that was taken from our Sustainable Tourism Master Plan, and the master plan was created in 2010. It was active for 10 years. However, we still use the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan to achieve a lot of what we are currently working on. So you'll hear more about the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan as we move forward with the presentation. This morning, I will be providing updates from the unit, philanthropic activities, and the challenges that we encounter as industry partners and leaders of the industry. There will be a section for questions at the end. However, if there's anything that you would like to ask during the presentation, you can do so by raising your hand so that I can alert someone to get the mic to you. This is an overview of MICU and tourism, just to provide you with deeper context. So, MICU and tourism is a part of the Government of Anguilla wider organizational structure. We are responsible for public infrastructural developments, communication, utility, port, tourism, programs, and projects. Our unit consists of departments and statutory bodies, example, the Anguilla Tourist Board, the Anguilla Transportation Board, the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association. These are all statutory bodies that we provide support to. Our mandate is to provide guidance, plan, and implement innovative infrastructure, communication, and utilities which are of high quality and well-designed that support the economy, socioeconomic, and cultural elements of Anguilla, its main driver, tourism. Through innovative leadership, expertise, and collaboration with partners, including relevant industrial partners, each of you that's here today, the ministry aims to improve process internally and provide public infrastructure that contributes to Anguilla's economy and Anguilla's quality of life. Earlier, I would have spoken on the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan. So the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan gives coherence to the overall planning, management, and promotion of Anguilla's tourism product. A development concept and plan was proposed. In the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan, 3 tourism designated areas were looked at: East Tourism Development Area, Central, and the West. We also looked at diversification of the product that we offer in a way that can be promoted to different niche markets and the capacity of environment to sustain tourism development. So this can be emailed to each of you after. This is an example of the tourism development concept and plan. We have the East section, the Central, and the West. And in this development, there are proposals for a variety of attractions, heritage sites development, port enhancement, infrastructure development, the new airport, and so forth. So I know that this has probably piqued the interest of many persons in here, so I'll definitely send a copy after today's presentation. Since the ministry have been re-engaging with our industry partners in 2023, after a very temporary 8-month closure, we were focused on the development of policies. So I'm happy to report, I see that we have some divers in here as well. I'm happy to report that we completed the dive tourism policy, and we are now working on a national tourism policy. Product development. Now that we have a dive tourism policy, we're looking at diving and the development of our heritage attractions, which I will touch some more on as we get on into the presentation. We've had several consultations. We've had consultations with the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean State. We've had consultations before any of our policy development, dive tourism, national tourism. We've also had consultations with various art and craft practitioners, and we've had our most recent consultation with community-based tourism and training. We're also very focused on ensuring that you, our industrial partners, and persons within the community receive full access to everything that we have the access to, such as capacity building and training. In 2023, we trained in collaboration with Quest Experiences and some persons from the Department of Education, and I see that Clemvio is here representing Quest today. We trained over 60 tour guides. So there was an actual face-to-face training, and then there was an actual tour guide session where persons got to see a lot of what our tourists enjoy. We are currently working on a frontline training for the month of October, and this is a 3-day training supported by the Caribbean Tourism Organization. This training is fully financed by the Anguilla Air and Seaport Authority, and the Immigration Department. They will be a part of that training as well. Unfortunately, we're not in a position to train the entire ANC Port Authority, but this is a start. And following this, there will be a training of trainers that will allow our locals to be able to deliver training at a CTO level because they will be trained by the Caribbean Tourism Organization. We had virtual concierges training. This was a program that I will speak more about into the presentation. We've had community-based tourism training, and we also have a training of trainers scheduled to be held during Tourism Week in November, where we will be training trainers to be developed in this new market of community-based tourism. And today, we are here at the first tourism sector update, providing you with vital information as you prepare for the start of a new season. Policies. The dive tourism policy, we approached it from a holistic approach. So in Anguilla, persons currently engage in diving, and we have some of the best diving sites and infrastructure underwater. However, there was no policy to be guided by or to expand on different products. So the policy recognizes, we recognize the importance of this sector and the need for responsible stewardship. A comprehensive policy for sustainable dive tourism was formulated. The policy seeks to balance economic growth with environment conservation, ensuring the long-term viability of our underwater assets through a policy-based approach. The policy focuses and supports Sustainable Development Goal number 14. A lot of what we do, we try to ensure that it is supported by the 2030 agenda, because when we do that, we're moving ahead with our regional and international partners. When we sit at the table, Anguilla earns a seat at the table because we're being guided by the Sustainable Development Goals. So the Sustainable Development Goal number 14, Life Below Water, aims to protect and ensure the sustainable use of oceans. This includes the reduction of marine pollution, the impacts of ocean acidification, the ending of overfishing, and the conservation of marine and coastal areas and ecosystems. The dive tourism policy focuses on environmental conservation, community engagement, economic growth, safety and regulation, marketing and promotion, which we have already started through the Anguilla Tourist Board. A team will also be representing Anguilla at our dive trade show. Sharon might be able to share more about that this afternoon. And we're extremely happy and excited about that. We also met with the Department of Health Services to discuss some, and I see Malcolm is here, to discuss some challenges that we foresee we might experience now that we have a policy. One includes the absence of a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. Without that, we're unable to actively promote dive tourism on a level that we envision, because we would like to have our locals engage in things like dive festivals, etc. So we're working closely with the Department of Health Services to see what support can be given to actually have a hyperbaric chamber in Anguilla. And this will not only be a good thing for tourism, but it will also be a good thing for for the dive tourism industry, but also for medical tourism. So we're working ahead with that. And of course, the policy offers recommendations. We met with some of you in here. We met with some of our regional counterparts, and there were certain recommendations that were made. Sometime next year, we'll be having an assessment of our water, where persons will be, from an accredited organization, will come into Anguilla, and they'll assess our waters, they'll provide ongoing training. I know that some of our divers are very keen on having a nonprofit organization started through Department of Education, where persons don't have to wait until they're older to engage in diving, but we can start teaching persons to dive, I think, from the age of 10. So these are all things that we're working on, and you all will be invited to the official launch of the policy that will be sometime in October. The OECS Common Tourism Policy and National Tourism Policy. Last year, some of you would have met with our colleagues from OECS. They were part of a team that's working towards a regional policy. So this is not only for Anguilla, but for Dominica, St. Lucia, you name it. And they met with us. They were extremely pleased with everything that they heard. We recognized the wins, and we acknowledged the needs for development as well. And it's not something that's only for Anguilla. Right? Other Caribbean countries, they had the same, okay, yes, we're doing well in this area, but there could be some development in that area as well. So we're glad for information like that. And we will be using the information that was captured in the OECS Common Tourism Policy to form our national tourism policy. We have already began conducting research, whether it's through surveys, questionnaires, interviews, consultation, best practices, pilot programs, site visits, and field research. So hopefully, before the end of the year, we should have a national tourism policy. In Anguilla, we have, if I have to talk about all of the development, it will be the entire day session and more. But as I mentioned earlier, I'll just like to highlight some things that we have been achieving from 2023. The Wallblake House is the oldest plantation house in Anguilla, and we are very keen on reopening the Wallblake House. I'll speak more to that. We have a lot of beach attractions. We have organizations like the Anguilla Enhancement Program. We also have Anguilla Enhancement Project. We also have businesses like Quest Experiences that ensure that tourists and local experience a lot of our heritage and attractions. We have been engaging in a lot of programs, capacity buildings with industry partners, and key regional collaboration with Caribbean Tourism Organization, with the Caribbean Development Board, with the Organization of the Eastern Caribbean State. We are also a member of Caribbean Tourism Organization. So as a member, we usually benefit from a lot of training or a lot of opportunities, and we have been sharing those opportunities with our industry partners, and hopefully some of you will be able to take full advantage of them. So this is a picture of the Wallblake House. I think everyone maybe is a bit familiar. However, this house was built in 1787. There's a rich history tied to the house. Apart from being the only plantation house in Anguilla, it's a house that also served as a museum in times gone by. So how do we know it's 1787? There's a piece of concrete area in the house where it's written. So based on the information provided through historians, that's what it's estimated to be built. Okay. Okay, well, I wasn't. So a lot of history is tied to that house. It was also the first building of the Ministry of Tourism, so that makes it very important to us. The house historically was used as a museum where persons could have just visited the house based on the availability of the Anguilla Archaeological Historical Society. From last year, we decided that whatever we're doing, we would like the community to benefit from it. So in addition to the museum, we will be adding an art and craft section where our local art and craft practitioners in Anguilla will have the opportunity to sell their art, their potteries, whatever it is, throughout the different seasons. We already met with over 15 interested art and craft practitioners who will be displaying and selling their arts. We will also have an eatery. At the moment, though, everything will be sent out for expression of interest through a procurement process. So we're excited about the expansion, and to ensure that some revenue can be generated, there'll be a very small entrance fee for visitors and locals. Children will be free. Consultations, I mentioned the OECS Common Tourism Policy Consultation. I mentioned the Dive Tourism Policy Consultation. We've had consultations with the art and craft practitioners. We've had consultations towards community-based tourism, where we're working extremely closely with the Anguilla Tourist Board and the Community Services Planner, Mrs. Hyacinth Bradley. We've also had frontline training consultations before deciding what area of focus the training should take next month in October, virtual concierges training program and community-based training of trainers. The virtual concierges, I noticed that Laura just walked in, and luckily Laura is the one on the photo, it's featured in the photo. So Laura, thank you again for your services. This program was developed out of the need to have quicker responses, more availability of properties during the Anguilla Summer Festival. We knew that this would have been a big thing for Anguilla, a big development for Anguilla, and we engaged a total of 5 concierges to assist us with being a referral agent for different properties on Anguilla. So we've had the debriefing, and I think by all accounts, and even from hearing from the stakeholders, this program was very appreciated by everyone who utilized it, because it kind of provided a break where you could have just contacted a concierge. We partnered with Digicel, where they provided us with loaner phones and MiFi routers, and whatever information the concierges received, it was shared with the industrial partners, and they had the responsibility to contact the incoming guests. I must say that this program was not developed to market or promote any specific property. So everything was done just based on how it was received. There are challenges. One of our challenges that we encounter now is seasonality, and we're keen on having Anguilla open all year round with the new airports coming, with the development of the new airport. We've seen some little upticks in crime, and we're very concerned about those as well. So we're working in ways to, try to minimize what happens. Infrastructure limitations, and we're currently developing new roads. With diving, there might be some new underwater infrastructure. Environmental sustainability, natural disasters like everywhere else, competitive market. But instead of thinking of our neighbors as competition, sometimes we prefer to collaborate with them. I've been in contact, for example, with the heritage team in St. Martin. So when persons visit the heritage sites in St. Martin, they'll feel comfortable referring them to our heritage sites in Anguilla. Limited diversification of tourism products, human resource challenges, health and safety concerns, climate change, and financial constraints. Now, the last part, you're all here as industrial partners, and you can all play your part. If you're interested in adapting a project, you can speak to any one of us after, where we can speak about ways in which you can support any of our ongoing projects. This is what we do not want our guests to say about Anguilla, and this is what we do not want our locals to feel about Anguilla, right? Your luxury trip is my daily misery, so we're staying clear of that by involving the community in everything that we do. However, this is what we appreciate when they say the Caribbean's quiet treasure, among many other positive things. Philanthropic activities. Community investment, as I mentioned, your investment is critical in advancing a lot of what we do, whether you're a nonprofit organization, a private business, wherever you are, you can make a difference, even through our volunteerism programs. Everyone in here, there's something for everyone here to contribute to, whether it's financially or whether it's through your support. Sustainable development, as I mentioned earlier, moving ahead with the sustainable development goals, being the cornerstone of everything that we do. The Minister and Deputy Governor, thank you for attending. They need to leave for the House of Assembly that's on at 10. Cultural preservation. We have a variety of different heritage sites and cultural preservation that needs funding. For example, the Wallblake House, although it's supported by governments, your support as a stakeholder can go a long way, because when we do reopen, we're reopening with staffing, we're reopening throughout, we're reopening with different modern technologies while keeping the integrity of the house. So right now, very soon from now, you'll see some minor construction and repairs happening. Let me reassure you that none of the construction and repairs will be interfering with the current structure of the house. It's only things that would have gotten a bit damaged during the different hurricanes and so forth, so we're just putting them back intact. So whatever support you can to help preserve our culture, we welcome it. Capacity building. There are various scholarships offered by Caribbean tourism organizations. There's a lot of free training as well that as a member of CTO, your staff can be a part of. Your staff can gain from them. So there are some with probably minimal fees attached to them, but there's some that they just have to, register, be consistent, and then they will get the information that they require. We're also working with the education department to ensure that our young people, in addition to the Hello Tourist program, that tourism is it's currently taught in schools and from a very early age. When OECS visited Anguilla, they were very impressed with at the age that we start teaching tourism in our education system. It started in the preschool stage, from the preschool stage. So they were extremely impressed with that, and they requested to use that as a best practice as well. Disaster relief and recovery, thankfully, not needed for this year. But with our volunteerism program, Susan is here. Susan is here. Okay, I'm just throwing it out there, thankfully I said. But we never know what the future holds, but we're going to remain positive. So through our volunteerism program, persons in Anguilla and overseas, they can register to come to Anguilla as a volunteerist. Now, it's currently done, but it's not streamlined. So someone can come, they can probably tell the hotel agent, hi, I'm in Anguilla, I would like to volunteer, but there's nothing to, I don't want to say police, but there's nothing to monitor what the person is doing, how long they'll be here for. So we've had a consultation with immigration, and it is an area of concern, an area of interest. So we're working to develop a policy that supports that, and then when that is developed, then ATB will decide how best it can be marketed, having all the information. So I know volunteers, it will be even for after disasters with medicals and so forth, we know, okay, we have a team of persons in our database that we can call on. So this is thinking ahead and being proactive, and we're very excited about this segment. There are not many Caribbean countries that's leading in the volunteerist segment, so we're extremely excited.
Do you currently have a list of program offerings for volunteer tourism, or is it specifically related to disaster
Good question. So everyone heard the question? Basically, okay. So we do have a list of programs that it's ongoing that we're developing. We haven't met with, we haven't met with persons from the sector to discuss just volunteerism as yet to consult. But so far, we're working with the Department of Youth and Culture, the Community Services Planner. We noticed that a lot of tourists, they've been asking to volunteer at the centers. We also reached out to the Anguilla Enhancement Project, where they did share that persons have contacted them to volunteer as well. So when we get to the second consultation, we're expecting our industry partners to provide us with a list of programs that persons can volunteer towards. Yes, yes, correct. So even, for bigger or smaller projects, but it's something that's needed. Okay? Any other question before I move on? Okay. So in conclusion, Anguilla future depends on us, okay? Strategic partnerships, meeting like what we're doing here. If you've seen on one of our social media press release that we're doing something that you're interested in or, that you can contribute towards, you can let us know. We invite you to have a seat at the table. Sometimes, it may not always be at the appropriate time, but we'll try our best to share information. We are still working on ensuring that everyone is covered in our database. And, sometimes sending so much information, people miss, maybe some of the most critical information like today's session, but we're working towards it. Investment in government projects such as the Wallblake House. Next year, we're also looking at starting discussions towards the reopening or redevelopment of the Fountain Cavern. That's located in Shoal Bay. The development of new and existing policies. This is just a start. The dive tourism policy is just a start. Having a national tourism policy allows us to set standards for the hospitality and tourism sector, and this is something that Anguilla really needs. So through the policy, hospitality and tourism standards will be developed as well. Continued dialogue with industry partners. And as mentioned earlier, the unit comprises of 2 persons, a tourism planner and a product development officer. And I'm sure by now you all have our information, so maybe no need for this, but we would like to thank you for giving us your undivided attention. Do we have? Are there any questions before our next presenter? Yes, Jenny?
Yes, I noticed the Sustainable Development Plan ended at 2020. Are you going to be updating and regrouping that, or will the National Tourism Policy sort of take its place? Okay, so good question.
The National Tourism Policy will take its place. However, all of the plan was developed by Halcro Consultancy, and all of the information in the plan, it's so relevant to even what we're doing today. So from time to time, we refer to the plan just to see, okay, what the vision was then, what it is now, how can we marry both of them. But we're hoping that the tourism policy takes the place of the Sustainable Tourism Master Plan, but it's still very relevant if anyone would like to refer to it.
Right, and what are the timelines for the National Tourism Policy, and when will there be wide private sector and stakeholder engagement?
Mm-hmm. So the first draft of the tourism policy should be completed by December after the completion of the OECS Common Tourism Policy. The reason why we're feeding from the OECS Common Tourism Policy is because they would have met with, I think you were there as well, with different stakeholders, so we don't want to call you back to discuss the same things, right? So we're going to use some of the information that we provided them in that policy. We're looking at approved through Executive Council policy, possibly by August of next year. And there will be consultations with stakeholders. We'll also call you back to present the first official draft to you as industry partners, see what we've captured well, see what we can develop on, see what support needs to be stated in there as well. Thanks for your question. Any other question? Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Robin Williams for that comprehensive review of the tourism units. We will now break. We'll now have a coffee break for about 30 minutes. So please enjoy the refreshments and we'll reconvene in 30 minutes. The coffee and tea are located here in our kitchenette, and we will have snacks available shortly.
People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste a grilled fish that has just come fresh out of water, there is nothing like it. There is nothing like it that could come to my mind. Anguilla is where you fall in love with whoever, but most importantly, with yourself. Because when you find yourself, you end up finding things you didn't even know could be found. People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste a grilled fish that has just come fresh out of water, there is nothing like it. There is nothing like it that could come to my mind. Anguilla is where you fall in love with whoever, but most importantly, with yourself. Because when you find yourself, you end up finding things you didn't even know could be found. People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste a grilled fish that has just come fresh out of water, there is nothing like it. There is nothing like it that could come to my mind. Anguilla is where you fall in love with whoever, but most importantly, with yourself. Because when you find yourself, you end up finding things you didn't even know could be found. People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste a grilled fish that has just come fresh out of water, there is nothing like it. There is nothing like it that could come to my mind. Anguilla is where you fall in love with whoever, but most importantly, with yourself. Because when you find yourself, you end up finding things you didn't even know could be found. People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste a grilled fish that has just come fresh out of water, there is nothing like it. There is nothing like it that could come to my mind. Anguilla is where you fall in love with whoever, but most importantly, with yourself. Because when you find yourself, you end up finding things you didn't even know could be found. People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste a grilled fish that has just come fresh out of water, there is nothing like it. There is nothing like it that could come to my mind. Anguilla is where you fall in love with whoever, but most importantly, with yourself. Because when you find yourself, you end up finding things you didn't even know could be found.
Good morning again, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed your refreshments. They were provided by Chef Sasha. Sasha Ray, a culinary virtuoso of the young age of 21, been crafting delectable experiences as a chef at the world-renowned Four Seasons Resort, Anguilla, since 2019. Beyond the confines of the kitchen, Sasha captivates audiences on popular social media platforms such as TikTok and Instagram, where her cuisine artistry shines. Driven by her love for the culinary arts, Sasha founded Tropical Delights during the peak of COVID-19 pandemic in September 2020, gaining renown for their tropical wings. Sasha Ray, a culinary professional with a zest of creativity and a taste for excellence. She sends her apologies for not being present today. However, she has left her exceptional team to uphold her high standards. At this time, my co-chair, Ms. Candesia Richards, will take over to guide us for the rest of this morning's sessions. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. As Ms. Sarah Lee Benjamin just stated, I'll be guiding you through the rest sessions for this morning. Our next speaker is Mr. Conrad Will Fleming, President of the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association. He will present on strengthening the role of Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association. We welcome you.
Good morning, everybody. I was going to say protocol established, but they're already gone. I would like to thank Jolene, the tourism planner, for inviting us to come here and present the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association. It's a privilege and honor to be able to reintroduce the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association to Anguilla. The Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association, as a critical trade organization, is critical and vital to the hospitality industry. The HTA existed in Anguilla since the inception of Anguilla's tourism product, way back in early 1980s. And as an economic driver, and by way of collective advocacy and collaboration, the Anguilla tourism industry was shaped. In 1981, the AHTA was born. So, since then, basically starting with the decimation of Anguilla that we faced from Hurricane Irma, where many of our industry partners were severely impacted, and subsequently the effects of the global pandemic in Anguilla. The effects it had on our travel industry. You know, Anguilla was practically closed. We had no travel inbound. So hospitality sector was unable to function. As a result, the AHTA lost its funding mechanism. We were unable to collect dues, so we couldn't fund our operation. While we were extremely instrumental in developing programs during the pandemic, and be the leading voice, be the contact person for the industry, we actually now, after the retirement of our AHTA, our executive director of the AHTA, unable to continue on as being the leading voice of the tourism industry. The AHTA was instrumental in lobbying both administrations to plan and make significant contributions to the development of tourism in Anguilla. So currently we have a board of 7 members, and we meet from time to time, and basically on the third Thursday of every successive month to discuss the way forward. So after many meetings, many discussions, we were able to negotiate with our administration. MOT is not here, but we were able to renew our funding. So we are in the process now of reestablishing our presence. Our first step moving forward is to confirm a new executive director. We are right now finalizing our candidates and about to make a decision on that. And after that, we will re-engage with our partners and stakeholders. And our organization is fully functional, and we hope to rebuild our membership and add new members to our association. So from here, I would like to introduce Sandra Richardson, our Vice President, to help us discuss on why you should be a member of the HTA.
Good morning, everyone. So I am here to go through some of the benefits of being a member of the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association. Our association with our regional body, CHTA, which is the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. When members pay their annual fees, they have access to all programs offered by the CHTA. CHTA hosts an annual event, which is called Marketplace, where members can attend and are able to sell their products and services to outside vendors. Each year, CHTA Marketplace is held in a different location. It brings together stakeholders, vendors, association members, wholesalers, retailers who showcase their island and its offerings. Marketplace 2024 was held in Montego Bay, Jamaica, and next year, 2025, Antigua and Barbuda has been selected as the location of choice. This event is one of flamboyance, pomp, and it brings together the main players of this august organizations. Persons who are unable to attend the event or members of the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association who are not able to attend that event, you can arrange through the AHTA to have your presentations done by someone of the board, someone from the board who can present on your behalf. So after the meeting, if you are interested, you can talk to either Will or myself, or you can talk to Janine. Janine is one of the power players. She's a past board member. We also have Deanna here, who is a member of our board, so you can feel free to talk to any one of us. There's also another event called Chief, and it's a valuable annual CHTA event which focuses on the building of human resource capacity and our industry and the tourism products and service offering. It is especially useful for smaller boutique properties who learn of the new best practices and enjoy peer-to-peer networking. You can speak on that. So Will and I are going to share this segment. So he's going to talk about something else, and then I will come back.
In the presentation that Julian gave this morning, there was a lot of talk about, a lot of emphasis placed on training and development. For many years, that was the one of the main objectives that the HTA focused on. We worked with partners, with the community college, we worked with the Anguilla Tourist Board, we worked with the Caribbean Tourism Organization, and primarily with the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association to provide necessary training for frontline employees, for management employees, for health and safety employees, as well as people in the culinary field. Now, the HTA is committed to continue being instrumental in whatever training our offerings are done as associated with hospitality or with tourism. So we would join with Jolene and make sure that we can deliver that services to our partners on the front line. And that's exactly what I said. Okay. You want to talk about Tourism is Key?
Okay, so Tourism is Key is another program that we engage in. It's an ongoing platform on the radio, and it is hosted by our competent Mrs. Janine Edwards. It focuses on issues that affect the tourism industry. So basically, if you have an issue that you'd like to talk to, Janine is always open, and it's a half-an-hour slot that airs every Thursday at 11 to 11:30. And Janine interviews you with respect to whatever subject area you would like to have discussed, and it is an amazing program. The program is also sent out via Facebook, and it's on our webpage, etc. Okay. Tourism is Key is the brainchild of Joseph Fossmeyer, who was the then Vice President of the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. The initiative was aimed at heightening awareness of the critical importance and the dynamics of our lifeblood industry, tourism, among local host populations in the region. Approximately 12 years ago, the then Executive Director, Mrs. Gildagum Samuel, conceptualized and launched the half-hour radio program in partnership with Radio Anguilla. The Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association is one of the only, if not the only association within the Caribbean that has kept this valuable CHTA program alive. Kudos. Okay, and finally,
Gala.
all right, this one is hot. So we want to bring back the Tourism Gala. Hear, hear? The Tourism Gala is one of the highlights of the AHTA in collaboration with the Anguilla Tourist Board. This event celebrates our top performers in the industry and presents an opportunity for all members and partners to meet and unwind in an elegant setting at the end of Tourism Week. There are lots of prizes, lots of giveaways, lots of weekend stays, lots of trips, which are donated, of course, and the selection of the Hotelier of the Year is announced at the gala. Now, since we have not been functional, we were unable to have the gala, so we were unable to select a Hotelier of the Year. So with the reinstatement of our amazing organization, this is one of the things that we will be bringing back, the annual Tourism Gala. And I'm sure that everybody is looking forward to that event. I nearly said amen. So the gala will therefore set center stage once the organization is reinstated, and we very much look forward to having our gala back in its full glory. The AHTA has supported and celebrated the Anguilla National Culinary Team over the years, and they practiced and competed successfully in the region among their competitors. The ANCT is an important training ground and professional collaboration for our developing talented chefs and bartenders. The AHTA looks forward to renewing its support to this worthy initiative. There are many, many more exciting initiatives adding value to our membership and the wider tourism community currently being conceptualized by the board. We look forward to the continued support of the industry and the community and strengthening our valuable tripartite collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism and the Anguilla Tourist Board. I will say at this juncture that I sincerely want to thank, I know Will said it before, but I want to thank the Minister of Tourism along with the Ministry of Finance for ensuring, after our many meetings, for ensuring that our funding has been restored. Once our funding is restored, we are going to be hunting our members down. You know, and if you are not a member of the organization at this time, you can make contact with any of us. We will get you forms or whatever is necessary to have you be a part of this amazing organization. I don't know if you have any questions, but we will be happy to answer any questions.
What's the prerequisites to be a member of the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association?
Okay, so we have 3 segments, I think. We have hotels, accommodation, which includes hotels and villas, and we have allied members, which can be anywhere from car rentals.
Or bank.
You know, once you have a stake in the tourism industry, you can be a member of the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association.
Does that include Airbnb properties as well?
Yes, it does.
Especially Airbnb properties right now. Because a lot of people are actually entering in the tourism industry for the first time and could use the help of the association to strengthen your companies. Question?
Okay, and also I was wondering what would be the fees included to be a member?
We have different fee structures. I'm not certain, but I know like the larger hotels, they have one tier. The allied members, I think it's $250 per annum. But there are different tiers, but we can always research it and get back to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions or concerns or comments?
Okay. Certainly.
That the gala ends tourism week, please. The last event for tourism week.
Yeah, I think we indicated, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know there was some change some time ago where they had put it towards the end of January, but usually the event ends the Anguilla Tourism Week. Yeah, so basically when it's reinstated, I think that's where we would, you know, I know some people will complain about, you know, November being Thanksgiving and some of the hotels, you know, would be kind of busy at that time. And I think that that was the reason why we pushed it to, yeah. And then in preparation for festive and all of that, it was a bit, you know, a bit much. But I think, you know, when it's reinstated, we will do it at the end.
Get a team.
Excuse me?
Get a team to focus on gala.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
One that isn't walking in the hotel.
And I will say here, previously, Gilda, who was our previous executive director, she was very instrumental in the success of that gala. I have to give her kudos. I don't know how she did it, but she made contact with every single person who was able to offer prizes, trips. I don't know how she did it.
She's a magician.
I'm thankful to her on behalf of the board for being so instrumental in doing that.
So then my next question is, are you looking for a new executive director?
Yes.
At the moment, we are.
Okay.
Is the ad out right now so that you can?
Well, yeah, kind of closed off right now, but yes. I'll put it out there if anyone else is interested in being the executive director for the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association, we will still accept. But yes, we do have a candidate that we are looking at right now.
Okay. That's it. Anybody else?
Okay, so if no more questions, thank you very much for listening. And if you have an interest in our organization, please feel free to make contact with any member of the board, the president, myself, Janine, Deanna, and we will be more than happy to assist you in getting on board.
So if you want to send an email, it's simple, ahta@gmail.com. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming and Mrs. Richardson, for your insights into how the association continues to support Anguilla's tourism. Our next speaker is Ms. Susan Hodge, Director of the Department of Disaster Management, who will present on preparedness, response, and recovery.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, I just thought they were not going to put my presentation up, because then I would have to dance in front of you. Thank you so much to Jolene and the Ministry of Tourism for inviting us here today. I listened keenly to the speeches at the speeches at the beginning of this session, and I loved the way that everything focused on the support industries and increasing access. But for me, the focus is a little different, because when we increase access, what are we doing for me and the people who work with me? So introduction, disasters can be natural or man-made, and they can have devastating impacts on our communities, economies, and ecosystems, as we all know. I think most of us were here for Hurricane Irma. I can remember my very first hurricane experience was Hurricane Lewis in '95, and all the other hurricanes, except for Lenny, since then. And I know what it did to our tourism product. So from hurricanes, earthquakes, tsunamis, because we don't think about tsunamis much, industrial accidents and pandemics, the frequency and intensity of these events remind us of the importance of comprehensive disaster management. And this presentation focuses on the disaster cycle. That's the preparedness, the mitigation, response, and recovery. So who are the Department of Disaster Management? Who are the people who do their best to make sure that everybody in Anguilla is informed, not just the tourism sector, but everybody who comes to the island? We try and get to everybody. We try and speak and address everything that everybody needs when it comes to disasters. You can see us faded in the background there. And the tallest one is the head. The one in the middle. So basically you can see who we are. I'm the director. We have a deputy director, Trevor Quealy, program officer, Nicola Webster, who's in the back hiding. Another program officer, Mr. Alwyn Richardson, you probably know him as Jerry Dice, and our emergency administrative officer, Ms. Nishara Payne. We have 3 vacant positions. So program officer logistics, communications, and clerical officer. We are also affiliated or members of SEDEMA, which is a Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. There are 18, 19 participating states throughout the region. The Director of Disaster Management sits at the Technical Advisory Committee of SEDEMA. We also are part of other programs that SEDEMA runs. So it's not just Anguilla. When we need assistance, we can go outside Anguilla to get that assistance. I can give you an example. Last year when we had Hurricane Tammy, It wasn't much wind. There was a lot of rain, but the rain caused a landslide. And we were able to tap into SEDEMA to send experts to view the area and to give us some opportunities to how it could be fixed. Expensive opportunities. So it's there. Something is gonna happen at some point in time, but it's there. So we are the national coordination body for disaster management, as I said. We develop disaster risk reduction strategies. We provide training and resources to the sectors, including tourism. We support the recovery and resilience initiatives post-disaster. In 2005, so the department is making 20 next year. In 2005, the government of Anguilla agreed a national comprehensive disaster management strategy to coordinate all disaster activities in Anguilla. They formed the National Disaster Management Committee and the Department of Disaster Management. So from that strategy, we now have a shelter program, we have damage analysis and needs assessment, mitigation, health. Well, health was always there, but they are part of our mechanism, mass casualty relief, etc. And we have a National Emergency Operations Center. Anybody want to tell me where that is? Not anybody in government, somebody in the private sector.
It's across from the police station.
That's right. And that's where everything happens. If there's a disaster, all of the information should, I say should because sometimes it doesn't, come through the EOC so that we can provide a national response. And I want this, they didn't ask me to say this, but I'm going to put a plug in for the AHTA because they sit as part of our tourism working group because there are committees under the National Disaster Management Committee and there are working groups, and one for tourism is made up of the Anguilla Tourist Board, the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association, and the Ministry of Tourism. So if you become a member, they didn't pay me to say this, if you become, but if you become a member, that means that your thoughts, your needs will be addressed at a national level as well. So why do we need to prepare for disasters in tourism? Anybody want to tell me? Sorry? Exactly. But added to that, tourism is one of our key economic drivers. It protects the guests, the staff, and your property, and it provides for quick recovery support for national economic stability. As I said before, more airlift, more access to Anguilla impacts our jobs, impacts fire, impacts health. It impacts the ports. So as we expand our access, we need to expand our departments that respond because it's going to mean that there's more people that we need to address. That's a plug again. But that's for me this time. So preparedness is not just about protecting your property, it's about protecting the lives and livelihoods of the people who work in the tourism sector. Tourism plays an essential role in our economy, especially in Anguilla, where we depend heavily on international visitors. Having robust plans in place help us respond quickly and recover faster when disaster strikes. So what is a disaster and why is it a disaster? There's something out there called a hazard. The hazard is constant. It's always there, but it's only when it affects people that it becomes dangerous or becomes active. And depending on how many people are affected, then it can develop into a disaster. Because for 6 months of the year, everything is fine. We don't have to worry about hurricanes. I don't get any calls. Susan, there's this, what's happening with this rain? Why is this happening? I don't get any of those calls. But then as soon as the 1st of June hits, until the 30th of November, every additional drop of rain, Susan, what's going on? Is there something in the area? So think about it. For 6 months of every year, there's a likelihood of us being impacted by a hurricane. This year, the predictions were very high. 23 named storms. We are actually now on 9. Isaac is out there. Luckily for us, who's driving T69? Can you please move your vehicle? I think you're blocking somebody. That's the first time I've ever gotten to say that. So a hazard does not exist when it's not happening. So for 6 months of the year, we don't have to worry about hurricanes. Although, historically, we have had a hurricane in January in Anguilla. That was Hurricane Alice. So it has happened. What makes an emergency a disaster is when it impacts more people. When Hurricane Irma hit, when Hurricane Lewis, when Gonzalo, when everybody told me, oh, Susan, it doesn't matter, Gonzalo's going to be a category, is going to be a tropical storm. It wasn't. We have to be prepared, and that's what we focus on, being prepared. If nothing happens, then you're fine. But at least if something does happen, you're prepared, and part of that is planning. So, I know this is going to cause... Hurricane is our #1 hazard, and that is because of the frequency and the devastation that can happen. Anybody want to hazard a guess as to what is our #2 hazard? This is on a national level, not for properties, because your risk level will be different. Nope. It needs to get on the list, but no, not right now. No.
Things that have happened or are happening?
That, yeah. And I'm just gonna go through. But when we did this originally in 2015, tsunami came out as our top hazard because of the devastation that it can cause. But based on the frequency, it became #3. Marine incidents, that's anything, that's the ferries, that's any of the boats that are going around. That's #4. Earthquake is #5. And it's interesting that earthquake is #5 because earthquakes can cause tsunamis. Can, but not all tsunamis come from earthquakes. It would be a volcanic, a displacement of water, something like that. Yeah. That's a tsunamis is a whole other area. I could talk for days. Flooding is another one. Let me just go through these quickly. And you see from 2015, we knew that a pandemic or an epidemic was likely, and then we had COVID. So extreme heat is #11. That does not mean that this is how we have it now. Based on information, it can change. But this is our national.
How do your numbers correspond to make it a hazard? Like more people could die from maybe heat exposure, like seniors, versus a landslide? Like have you ever had anyone hurt by a landslide in Anguilla? So how do you figure
The number, this isn't, we didn't do the impact analysis on persons, we did it on the country. So that's how the scores are. Because when we first did it, we looked at, the top 5, but we realized that aviation accidents was way down because we look at the frequency of and historical data of when it has happened. Okay, so. Okay. Yeah, number 50. I thought that was up there. Civil disorder is a hazard. How would we be able to? I looked recently. I see you, Matthew. I looked recently at the the riots in the UK, and it was horrifying to see what a mass of misguided people can do. Yeah.
This is based on 2015 data? And
No.
data before that, or is it based on recent data?
Well, it was updated recently, and and we can only use the data that we get.
So where's your source of data? Where's it coming from?
It comes from everywhere, all the reports that are sent to us, and that's one of the things that I think I had said it before. Everything is supposed to go through the EOC. Everything is supposed to go through disaster management. But if we don't get the data, then we can't make any changes. And that's one of the important things. When the tourism sector is affected, if you fix it and you don't tell us, then we can't put that down. If there is an accident, something happens, I don't know, something happens, scaffolding, for instance, falls at your property and you don't report it to anybody, how can we then add that to our equation for a national thing?
But how is
It's
that
not
data
highly subjective. We do have data, but as I said, it's only based on the data that we have. And if you provide us with the data, then we can make the adjustments. Okay?
But it's not, is it currently a requirement for businesses to provide data?
No, it's not, but if you have an accident on your property, shouldn't you report it?
Well, I'm
No, I'm asking. This is a good conversation, actually.
Because the issue is, at what point does it become reportable? In other words, if someone cuts their foot on a boat ladder, that's not necessarily reportable. But if someone is hit by a boat, that would be reportable because of the extremeness of the incident.
Well, that's a conversation we definitely need to have then.
Right, I mean, because there needs to be standards, otherwise you either get flooded with too much information,
Yeah.
or you're not going to get enough information.
And I guess when the occupational safety and health legislation comes in, that will make it a lot easier. It should be, yeah, definitely. Yeah. But it's a good conversation because you're opening our remit, our thoughts. So, yeah, that's good to know. Identifying potential hazards. Natural hazards, obviously, everybody knows about the natural hazards. Then there are health-related hazards, pandemics. If there's what's going on now? Measles, or is it Mpox? Mpox. If somebody in your property has Mpox and you don't report it, and then it starts throughout the country. You know, there are. You know, it's like when we had COVID at the beginning, when we shut down the country to try and stop anything happening. And then as we opened it up, there was a process for persons to come in. A lot of people did not want to have to go through that process. But because we had that process, we were going through what other countries went through like 6 months after. There was a 9-month delay for Anguilla because of the protocols that were put in place. Because of the COVID pandemic. So we have to be, there were reportable things. How you report, I'm assuming it would be to the health, that somebody is sick or whatever, but that's, again, another conversation that we definitely need to have. Because that's why we come to these things, because there are things, we can't think of everything. As you see, there's 5 people there. So this conversation is definitely good. Security threats, civil unrest, and technological threats. How many of you? I was overseas when we had our cyber breach, our cyber cord thing. Yeah. And I was traveling home. I couldn't pay for my hotel room. I was lucky that I went for government and they were able to cover that for me, but it wasn't just Anguilla, you know, the people here, it was far-reaching because people wouldn't have been able to use their credit cards, they wouldn't have been able to transfer any money to different things, you know. So we have to be careful, and one of the things I've had to report on, or I reported on at the Overseas Territories Disaster Conference, was that what happened there when when the cable was cut. And surprisingly, it happened again very closely, it almost happened in Cayman, in Montserrat, and in Bermuda. So we think that we're safe, and we rely a lot on technology, but we have to be very careful. And there's now talk about doing something different with the cables, that they're more protected. Because as far as I understand, they just lay on the floor. So we have to...
In regards to cables, there's supposed to be another cable at the other end of the island going the other way. They never laid that as part of the issue with the cables.
Mm-hmm.
They've just laid newer cable. So after they repaired the existing cable and buried it down 1.5 feet, they then laid new cable this year, later on this year off the barge.
Okay.
And that's been laid, and it's a much thicker cable.
And I think that there's something, it's more robust because it's got something casing, yeah.
Casing around it.
Yeah.
And it's also been updated in the government charts and the GPSs.
But they were always there. You know what frightened me? This is an aside, but what frightened me was that somebody can go to a boat show, buy a boat, come back, and drive it, and they don't need to have a license.
This was a mega yacht with a license. This wasn't some guy on a little...
No, I understand that, but the mere fact that somebody can go and buy a boat and then come into our waters and just sail it around, as long as they don't have any passengers, they can do that. And that's something that surprised me. I can remember growing up in the UK, I had to get a little license to ride my bike when I was 12. You know, so it's just... Okay, anyway, that's an aside, sorry. Preparedness planning for hotels and properties. The key components of preparedness. Do your risk assessment and your vulnerability analysis. Where are you? Do you have coral reefs in front of you that's going to protect your beach property to a certain extent? Those are the things that you need to look at. What are your vulnerability? What are your risk assessments? When I look at what happened to the Bahamas with Dorian and what happened to Anguilla with Irma, the difference is we had coral reefs that are our last bastion of defense with storm surge and hurricanes, and we need to protect them. I'm not an eco-warrior by no means, but I realize the importance of our coral reefs and our protection for our island, and I think it's something that we need to talk more about. So risk analysis and vulnerability. Development of your disaster plans, your evacuation routes, your safe zones, your staff training and drills. How often do you do staff training? Do you do drills with your staff? Emergency communications, internal and external. I know that most properties, larger properties for sure, have radio systems internally, but how else can you communicate with persons? We, from a disaster management perspective, and from the EOC perspective, are trying to see how we can communicate with with properties who have a radio base, that they'd be able to communicate with the EOC if needed.
On the topic of communications, I know there was some talk a while ago. How and where do you think stands in reference to a national alerting, like an Amber Alert that they would have in the States and Canada on people? Like, I get text messages from Digicel as if they're my husband, mother. Like, I get more from them than anyone in my family. 3 a day with promotions, but yet we don't have access to the same notification system for disaster relief.
We have the Anguilla warning system that was set up some years ago. But it's something that you have to, and you have to. We have had discussions with our service providers, and hopefully you can all advocate on our behalf, because there is infrastructure that can be purchased, and our warning system can be used to alert persons that way. Because I know I was in the US sometime and I was not connected to anything, I didn't have Wi-Fi, and I got an Amber Alert. And I'm like, well, this is exactly what we need. But you need to advocate to our service providers on our behalf. We have something in the interim that if we have something to send out now, by the warning system. Digicel and Flow are on board, that somebody from disaster management would actually send a message, but that is still relying on somebody to be there to send out that message. What you're suggesting is something that we have discussed. We have talked with them. I guess it would be a matter of all of the advocating, all of the people who use the service saying, listen, this is what we want, and then they might do it. Because it's going to cost them, but they're not going to get any money for it, if you see what I mean.
In order to operate in a country, there can't be a stipulation.
Well, that, you and I can definitely live, because I agree with you, but I can't say that. I'm not, I agree. I totally agree with what you're saying. So your backup systems and your power, essential, and supplies. I'm very conscious of the fact that I only had 15 minutes, and I'm sure that 15 minutes is gone. So immediate response actions. Activation of your emergency plan. Once something is happening, you need to have your emergency plan. Ensure your guests and your staff are safe. Do you evacuate or do you shelter in place? What is the hazard? How, what is it that you need to do? Do you get them all out, or do you stay where you are? Because if it's a hazmat and it's in the air, it might be safer to stay in than to get them to move somewhere. But if it's a tsunami, you don't want them to stay there, you want them to move. So coordinating with local authorities, DDM, police, fire services. As I said, we're trying to work on getting a communication with the EOC, because the EOC will be activated in the event of a national emergency. Clear communication with guests, emergency protocols, and safety instructions. I can remember in 2011 when Anguilla was going to be tsunami ready, we had discussions with the tourism sector about the signage, because we know that the high-end tourism that we have, that persons might say, oh my gosh, there's tsunami ready. Does that mean that there are tsunamis here, we shouldn't come? That kind of thing. Instead of looking at it from the other point of view, they're tsunami ready. So therefore, if there's a tsunami, we will know what we're going to do. And we're going through the process again. So you'll hear from either Nikki or myself shortly. Continuity of operations and maintaining your critical services. How many of you have business continuity plans? What are your critical services that you still need to provide, irrespective of if everything else has gone down? Those are some of the things that you need to look at. Recovery, getting back to business. Damage assessment and repair strategy. When your property is damaged, you need to communicate with the DANA personnel. Only by communicating with the DANA personnel, and DANA is damage and assessment and needs analysis. Damage analysis and needs assessment, yeah. So that way, from a national perspective, we'll know exactly what is needed. Because when government asks for things or goes out and looks to the donor groups for things, we don't just ask for government, we ask from a national perspective. So if your business is part of that process, whatever assistance we can give you, we will. I know that after Irma, the CRIF insurance, which is the Caribbean Catastrophic Risk Insurance Fund, a lot of the money went into the tourism sector. The money that was received as part of that insurance fund went into the tourism sector. Communication with your guests, your staff, and your stakeholders. Building infrastructure with resilience. How do you build? There are people say, why would you build on a floodplain? But there's ways to build on a floodplain and build safely. Business continuity planning, reopening safely and swiftly. Financial recovery, insurance, the funding and assistance program. Recovery starts as soon as the immediate danger passes. You'll need to assess the damage, communicate with your stakeholders, and take steps to rebuild stronger. Now, Anguilla has a very strong building, I don't want to say code, but we have a way of building that other countries in the region don't necessarily have. When it comes to hurricanes, earthquakes, so collaborating with the Department of Disaster Management. We are a supporting agency. We are here if you need assistance developing your business continuity plan, come to us. If you need help training your personnel on the hazards that they may face, come to us. We'll help. And if we can't do it ourselves, we will find somebody who can do it for you. Resources available in the hospitality sector, again, training and guidance, and ongoing collaboration for disaster preparedness. What's in place? We have the National Disaster Management Committee, the Emergency Operations Center. We have our CDM policy, and that's comprehensive disaster management throughout the disaster cycle. That's preparedness, response, recovery. We deal with all of the hazards all through that cycle, however it is, whatever that we face. We have a CERT program, which is a community response team program. It needs to be re-energized, but when we think about it, you people in the community, you live in areas, but you work in other areas. So if your staff members are CERT trained, that can also help your business because they'll know what to do in times. We have the Anguilla warning system, as I said. We have shelters, and we have a certain amount of multi-hazard community contingency plans. We also have our hazard inspection program that I'm sure some of you would have seen. Some of our inspectors come around and do hazard inspections on your behalf and send you reports, things about your hazards and the risks that are there. Yes? Okay. So your preparedness, this man is very prepared. See, these are some of the questions. Jolene, you have the presentation, so you can send it out to them. But do you know how many people work at your property? Do you know how many rooms your property has? Of course you would, but still. How many physically challenged persons are on your property? That's something that's not normally taken into consideration. Because as we expand our tourism base, there may be persons who need different access. And how would you treat with those persons? If persons are in-house, do they need to evacuate? I know from hearing after Hurricane Beryl that there were persons who came into Grenada and St. Vincent ahead of the storm so that they would be there to weather the storm. That's like disaster tourism. Sometimes they help, sometimes they hinder. It's just... So is your property in a safe or unsafe tsunami zone? Does your property have the plans? And if so, do you know it? If you do have a plan, do your staff know it? How often do you tell them when new people come on? Are they told about the plan and what to do and the things that need to happen? And if you had to, this is about you now, if you had to evacuate your household quickly, where would you go? And if you're not at home and your children are, do they know what to do? So next steps, review and update your disaster plans regularly. We can give you an outline if you need one. Engage with your staff in regular drills and training. And I know that it's going to be, oh my gosh, we've got another drill. But it's better to have an abundance of drills and not need it than never to have a drill and need it. Collaborate with your local emergency management teams, invest in resilient infrastructure, and stay informed. One of the things that we do as a department, when there is a hurricane, for instance, coming, we send out advisories. We don't send them out to the individual properties. We send them to the tourism working group. As I said, the AHTA, the ATB, and the Ministry of Tourism. They have a list of properties. The ATB has told me that they have a list of properties, and whatever we send to them, they send out. So whatever we are, and when we send out our bulletins for Anguilla, we do it from Anguilla perspective. So it's how many miles it is from Anguilla rather than it's here. Okay, so in conclusion, CDM allows us to look at disaster management through the entire cycle. By investing in comprehensive disaster management, we can collectively reduce the human, economic, and environmental impact of disasters. But the path to resilience lies with us. Sharing that information, being part of the conversation. I liked what happened here today, because those are things that we never took into consideration. So we need to. And I'll leave you with, what can we do for you? Thank you for your attention. If you have any other questions, you can always contact us. That's our contact information. And I would just realize I put a note on the back here, voluntourism. Maybe we can get some persons with disaster expertise when they come to be volunteers in the different sectors. So thank you very much. That's it. Any questions? Oh, sorry.
Just a suggestion, probably it would be good for your organization to be a part of the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association. Because I know you mentioned earlier that information, so basically if you need, information stream, it would be good if you would consider that.
When Gilda was executive director, we had a very, very good relationship with Gilda in such a way that everything at the AGMs, we weren't even members, but everything that we sent was sent out.
I think she was a part of the disaster meeting.
Right, so that's what I'm telling you. You're part of our organization.
Used to come from her
Yes.
to the members.
Yeah. Anybody else? I see a lot of smiling faces, but nobody's asking me any questions. You afterwards? Okay. Do I want to?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Oh, question, sorry.
Yeah. Not sure if you would have mentioned it, I may have missed it, but does the Department of Disaster Management offer any sort of programs or initiatives for the public to learn or how to prepare for the event of a disaster occurring?
Yes, but nobody comes. I can tell you that we have had many meetings. In March, when we launched the Tsunami Ready program, there was a meeting at the House of Assembly, and just the consultants who came in and the staff were there. We hold community meetings. We haven't had them recently, but we have held community meetings in the past, and maybe just one or two persons. I can remember when we were doing the Tsunami Ready process the first time around, and we had 2 weeks of meetings, and we sent out the notices, we put them in the churches, and over 2 weeks, we went to all around Anguilla to different venues. And one person came, and when he came, he said that he came to tell us that we don't know what we're talking. Because the evacuation route that we had for him was this way, and he knows that there's a different way this way. But we said that if you're a tourist who's just come to the island, you're not going to know the back ways. So we need to do the evacuation route. If you know how to get to somewhere differently, you can do that, but we have to cater for everybody who's on the island. And he understood that after that.
I remember we did a video for you all at the Island Harbour School.
Listen, yes.
They really rolled all the way up.
Exactly. That's very true. Thanks for that reminder. Any primary age child from 2010 upwards, from 2010 upwards, knows what to do in the event of a tsunami or a hurricane. I can guarantee you that. and you need to listen to your children in that case.
Susan.
Hi.
Are you there?
That's sure.
Okay. After the last natural major disaster that we had in 2017, Hurricane Norma, I recognize that the disaster management was in charge of the relief efforts in some areas. Is that your mandate as well?
Yes, it is. anything to do with disaster. But you see, the way maybe I should have put the structure up there, because there's the National Disaster Management Committee, and then there were 3 subcommittees: essential services, strategic planning, and community services. And under each of those committees, there are working groups. So there's a relief working group. So relief now, of course, 5 people are not going to be able to do everything. So we get all the communities involved. We have the churches involved. We have the ADRA, which is the Seventh-day Adventist grouping. ADRA, yeah. And anybody else who wants to assist from a relief standpoint. They're all part of that working group. So we sit together in blue skies, so to speak, to plan what we can do, and so that when gray skies come, we know what to do. And that's done with shelter, with relief, with the community. As I said, we're trying to revive our community response teams now. So as soon as we can get them up and running, more people will be involved. And we're always willing, Nikki can tell you that we're always willing to assist whenever anybody calls us. Sometimes we're in the middle of doing something. Oh, Susan, we need a presentation for this. We need something like this. We're always willing to go. And it doesn't, and should I say this as a government worker? It doesn't have to be between 8 to 4, because I have realized that disasters don't know my work hours. It can be a Saturday, a Sunday, in the middle of the night, because we're on 24/7 call, all of us who are in the department. Hi.
I was just wondering, seeing that I represent tourism and the tourism working group, if it will help the industrial partners if maybe quarterly minutes are shared, when you share it with us, it's shared with them. Would that bring everybody more up to speed, what's going on, what's the next step, what documents they need to get
You tell me.
in order, rather than waiting until probably the annual tourism sector update? Would that help? Yes.
Okay, so we can put that on the agenda. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge, for that vital update. Our next speaker is Reverend Wilmoth Hodge from the Anguilla Taxi Drivers Association, who will provide a ground transportation update.
Thank you. Still morning, right? Good morning, everyone. Oh, that's good now? Okay. This morning I'm here to give an update on what is happening with the Anguilla Taxi Association. Regrettably, we have a dormant taxi association at this time. I demitted office in January of 2022, and to date, there has not been a functioning Taxi Drivers Association in Anguilla. However, I am here as a member of the Taxi Fraternity to share with you about the evolution of ground transportation in Anguilla and how that evolution has affected the traditional taxi drivers trade.
Over the years, there have been changes in the trends within the taxi driving or the taxi sector in Anguilla. From the time that vehicular traffic was introduced into Anguilla in the mid-20th century, individuals had seen it fit to use their vehicles for hired transportation. During those early years, persons who functioned as taxi drivers and bus drivers used conventional as well as non-conventional means of transporting passengers around the island. Notably, those of us who are old enough will remember that trucks and pickups were used by many persons who provided transportation services. It can also be noted that ground transportation in those days was mainly for the movement of residents from one village to another. And we know that persons would come from the east and the west to the central area of Anguilla to do their shopping with the use of taxis and bus services. Since then, though, we have been providing service to the tourism sector of the island, and that is where most taxi drivers have their trade at this particular time. With the introduction of luxury tourism into Anguilla in the early to mid-80s, individuals saw the taxi trade as a viable means of being self-employed and being able to provide for themselves and their families. Thus, many persons acquired taxi licenses in order to participate in what was becoming a vital part of our tourism product. From the mid-80s up onto the mid-2010s, there was no legislation or no legislated standards under which players within this sector should operate. And there still aren't adequate rules and regulations by which persons providing ground transportation should function. And so you would recognize from time to time there is conflict. It first existed within the taxi fraternity itself, and now we have other players, other persons providing ground transportation, and so that conflict continues to this day. During this period that I mentioned before, taxi operators were made to seriously consider the quality of service that they provide as individuals if they were to remain viable and relevant in what was becoming a more competitive industry. They had to rethink the way that they were doing business, not only because new operators were entering the market with better conditioned vehicles, but with the realization that our tourist clientele was demanding not only better conditioned vehicles and service, but vehicles that could match vehicles that serviced the high-end expectation which existed in other countries as well. And so there were those individuals who could afford to provide such vehicles and services, who launched out beyond the traditional means of providing those services, where there was one driver, one vehicle, into one driver, multiple vehicles, and multiple drivers. That is, that taxi drivers were able to form companies where the taxi driver who held a license was able to employ many persons to operate many vehicles under their fleet, under their care. Individual individuals moved into this new era of providing ground transportation, which came with elevated pricing and rates that are still not regularized by authorities. Operators in this area of ground transportation have also been able to make arrangements with hoteliers to provide all or some aspects of their transportation needs, leaving the traditional taxi driver only to pick up the dregs, as it were. Hence, from the perspective of the Taxi Association, the plea has always been for equity within the market. Over the years, most, if not all, taxi drivers have upgraded their vehicles. They have also acquired a standard uniform. However, there is still room for improvement. Hence the need for inspection to ensure standards like seat belts, having the vehicles fitted with seat belts and working air conditions, that you have those kind of inspections to make sure that those standards are maintained. Notwithstanding the needs for improvements, taxi drivers, for the most part, in Anguilla are ready to service the tourism sector adequately. Well, that is as it relates to the way in which we provide the services that are required. However, I must say here that with increased numbers in tourism, in tourist arrivals over the last couple of years, there has been a need to employ new persons into this sector to provide the services. As it is right now, you will find that with the increase in the trippers from St. Martin in particular, most taxi drivers remain at Blowing Point. And there are occasions where you have persons arriving at the airport and there are not sufficient taxis to meet their needs. So that is something that we are constantly working with the ministry with to ensure that we are able to grant more licenses. One of the other things that has been happening is that over the years, individuals have acquired vehicles that are not taxis. They have fitted them with license plates that marks C, and those persons are not operating under any licensed taxi driver, but they have been functioning as taxi drivers. And that has posed a problem, a potential problem, as it relates to if anything would happen, God forbid if there were accidents, that we do not know who will be liable for that, because the hotels, they allow them to function. And so one of the pleas that I have made to the taxi board is, if you're not going to stop them, well then let them be first in line to obtain taxi permits so that they can function as normal taxi drivers. There is only so much that a taxi association can do. But we believe that government can help us in our approach to hoteliers to ensure that there is equity and fairness in the market. One of the complaints of taxi drivers is that if you are not benefiting, it is very difficult for you to keep the standards in terms of upgrading your vehicle. If you have other players in the market and they are getting the larger portion of the pie, and they are able to service their vehicles and upgrade their vehicles, and you are not. You are going to have vehicles that do not meet the standard because you're not making the kind of money that you want to make in order to keep up the standard. One of the arguments that I have always put before hoteliers when representing the interests of taxi drivers is that we, meaning Anguilla, has always welcomed developers to our island for the benefit of all of our people, not just some of our people. Therefore, they should work with us to ensure that every individual providing a qualitative service in this industry is not marginalized. I also want to say to us this morning that taxi drivers are the first point of contact. Apart from immigration and customs, they are the first impression that people get when they come to our island, whether it is at our seaports, the airport. And there are also opportunities for marketing via the taxi drivers, especially for those persons who are day trippers. I can recall speaking to a body such as this many years ago, and I shared with them my own experiences in dealing with day trippers. And it is something that I do not do often, but I have done it on occasion. And I make it my business to give them the option of visiting hotels when they come on day trips. Because people come to, they visit Anguilla and they do not come to Anguilla as the destination when they do day trips. They already prepared to go to a place and not to see Anguilla as the destination and to explore what Anguilla has to offer. And so you have tourists that come and they go straight to Shoal Bay. They never see any part of our tourism plant. They just head straight on to the beach at Shoal Bay. And in my experience, in speaking with persons who have done day trips, on more than one occasion, I have taken them to the hotels, and being able, the experience convinced them that Anguilla was a better choice than St. Martin. And on more than one occasion, they actually went back to St. Martin, checked out of their hotels, and came back to Anguilla. Right? And so what I've said to tourism officials over the years is that you need to have a presence, a constant presence at the ferry terminal to intercept persons who are coming on day trips in order to give them some information, that would let them know what Anguilla has to offer other than just going and sitting on Shoal Bay Beach. And you'll be surprised to see that many of those persons on their next trip, they will return to Anguilla. So these are the areas, this is one area where we can work with our taxi drivers to ensure that they become a part of our marketing tool. And when you look at the figures for this year in particular, you will realize that there hasn't really been a lull in the day trippers, even as tourism has closed off in the major properties for the season. The day trippers, they continue to come. And so I would like for you to consider this, to have that presence at the ferry terminal, to make sure that we feed as much information as we could about what we have to offer in Anguilla. With that, I say thank you.
In terms of the standard of vehicles that some of the taxi drivers drive, it is of great concern because some of them don't have AC units and it's very hot. And basically, to me, if you're paying for service,
Yeah.
They should be in Angola because of the type of tourism that we market. I am of the firm belief that the standard of vehicles that are driven for taxis should be relatively the same.
What I would say to that,
How does the association?
what I would say to that is that there has been a lot of improvements over the years. Unfortunately, some of the vehicles that we say do not have air condition do have air condition. It's the kind of people that operate vehicles, and they refuse to put on the air condition. And we've stated to them time and time again that you should not have persons arriving and entering your vehicle without the air condition being on. Let the guests say to you they will prefer to have the windows down, but you greet them, especially in this climate. You greet them with making sure that the air conditioner is on, and that is ideally so. The vehicles are fitted with air conditioning. Most of the air conditions are working, and
But if the association was active,
well,
should there be a way that you can bar them?
here
They
again,
must follow standards. They must
yeah.
follow restrictions.
Here is
If not, we are not going to use you.
we have a situation where these standards, as well as other, rules and regulations, have been brought to the persons that, have the power to execute and to legislate, and we have never had any movement in terms of that legislation from administration to administration. We have not. If you do not have the legislative teeth to deal with these issues, we can. The Taxi Association can be, do not really have the power to enforce a lot of things. So that is something that the Taxi Association has been doing for years, trying to get the legislation to deal with these issues.
So, working at front desk at one of the major hotels, I've heard a complaint about the rates. So I want to know what factors are considered when coming up with the rates. I know they're by zone, and they change after a certain hour based on person, based on baggage. But what other factors are considered when coming up with rates?
Okay, it's interesting that you asked that question, because when I entered here earlier, somebody approached me and they asked, why is it that our taxi rates are so low? Upon entering here, that question was asked. And in my conversations with hoteliers, as it relates to whenever that question comes up, especially the hotel that you worked for, I think, whenever that question came up, I would say to them, I said, listen, if you have one taxi driver who you constantly call and you ensure that that taxi driver is well taken care of, and you ensure that they have the numbers as well as the rotation, and other taxi drivers do not have the numbers or the rotation, and they have to wait just to pick up the 1 and 2s and so forth. And I said, until you ensure that there is equity, then we cannot look at the rates.
But then wouldn't that come with regulation and policy too? Because if the service is not standardized, why should there be, it's not equitable, the service isn't equitable, so why should prioritization be equitable?
Well, here is and on the same note, the hotel, I think in question, right? They arrange to have their own standards. They actually give passes to drivers That is across the board to drivers that had a standard, and most of our taxis met their standards. But even though they met the standard, they still are being given favoritism, if I can use that word. Okay? So you would have taxi drivers that are parked in their parking lot, and they just sit and they look at other persons run circles around them. Right? If you have equity, then we can look at the rates at certain points.
Okay, will that also apply to taxi drivers that establish a relationship with returning guests, and now they are now requesting that taxi driver?
No, that doesn't
to be their
include
driver
that.
for
No,
their stay?
no, that is acceptable all the time. Yeah, certainly.
Just a quick question. I know you can't answer it, but just to put it there in the ether. For example, the rates, and I can tell you the rate to take a taxi from the Anguilla Great House towards Aurora property is more than from the Anguilla Great House to Standing Ground.
Yes, that's not true.
The border is between the two properties.
No, that's not true.
Really changed.
Huh? It's not true. It's
Really
not more.
changed.
It's not true.
Because we're in the same zone as Standing Ground.
That is not true. If you move from the Anguilla Great House to Aurora during the day, it is going to be $18. You cross the border, so it's going to be $18. You have to drive from the Great House, come out to the main road, and then enter the Aurora property. If you're going to Stand the Ground during the day, then it is going to be from the Anguilla Great House, $26 from the Anguilla Great House, 22. 22, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Another question, sorry.
Yes.
So you said that the association is not in operation.
It's not functioning right now.
So who is policing that the current taxi drivers are sticking to their rates? Because now you see there's a discrepancy in his understanding.
As it has always been, if you have a complaint, most of the complaints have been made to the Anguilla Tourist Board prior, and then they will filter down. The complaints will filter down from the Tourist Board to the Taxi Association. I've never gotten a complaint directly.
But if there is no taxi association, how does it filter down?
Well, to the tax, there is still a body. There is still a body of taxi drivers, and so because the taxi drivers they work and they congregate in the same area, notices go up when, let's say, the Port Authority wants to have a meeting with the taxi drivers. They send out a notice, and they, not word of mouth only, they send it out. We still have a WhatsApp chat that includes all of the taxi drivers where there is communication being held.
I know recently the taxi rates were revised. Are they published anywhere? Because I still have the old ones.
Yes. Well, you still have the old ones. How is that?
Unfortunately.
How is that? The ministry comes up with those rates.
I think once you type in Google Anguilla taxi rates, the rates and the Zoom map.
The new ones, because there was a new rate guide that was issued, and I was told by one of the dispatchers that the rates were incorrect. They were going to be further revised.
Uh-huh.
But I just couldn't find it anywhere.
Okay.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I know it's not a tourist board.
The ministry? Yep.
I know there's a taxi.
The ministry. There's a taxi board. The proposals come from the taxi board, but the ministry has to accept, and yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Hodge, for your insights into the role of ground transportation in tourism. Next, we'll have Mrs. Jolene Robin Williams to give us a recap of this morning's session.
Good morning again, everyone. Before we head downstairs to enjoy our delectable lunch by Chef Sasha, just a recap of this morning. From the ministry, we've heard the successes, and we've also noted all the areas for further development. Areas in Department of Disaster Management, training in the areas of the Taxi Drivers Association, probably assisting with reviving the association as well, noting that Reverend Hodge would have stated that it's currently dormant. We also have in the pipeline for the first quarter of 2025 the successful taxi driver training that will be facilitated by Caribbean Tourism Organization. Now, this is not something that can be made mandatory, but we're hoping that the taxi drivers or the ground transport operators sees the value in such training and they take full advantage of it, even though minimal cost might be attached. It's just to get persons to commit to it. Okay. We are also considering increasing our concierge presence throughout the island. So the virtual concierges program was created during the Anguilla Summer Festival, but from recent discussion with the Anguilla Air and Seaport Authority and other agencies, there is an extremely high demand to have our concierges support the dispatcher and even the taxi operators. From recent tour guide training that we've collaborated with, persons have asked, hey, if I'm free on a Saturday, can I just partner with this taxi driver to assist them or to gain some exposure? We are aware that some of the vehicles might be a bit, older, for lack of a better term, than others. Some might be a bit more modern. And with everything, as you get older, as vehicles get older, there's more wear and tear. And our process at MyCoo does not involve the internal screening of vehicles. We deal with the brakes, the light, everyone knows what happened downstairs if you're a motorist. So what we're going to do as well is work with the vehicles team downstairs to see how we can help develop our taxi standards. Although a vehicle might be 15 years old or whatever, it can still be very functional, so it's just a matter of ensuring that it's maintained. We will also be implementing, it was also needs that was listed by the Anguilla Air and Seaport Authority, a national incident or accident reporting form. So persons, whether they go through I'm sure there's a channel with the ATB that it can be done, but from a national level, not only for incidents, accidents, but anything that you feel as an industrial partner, the ministry should be aware of, the complaints of raids, whatever it is, incidents happening on property, disaster-related incidents, things like this that could make our industry a bit better. The published rates that everyone has been inquiring about, the rates are currently at the formal rates are currently at the Executive Council level. So this will be approved, and once this is approved officially, then the ministry will create an official release where everyone can have access to the rates. We're also trying to ensure that everything is done digitalized, so the rates will be shared with you digitally. With the Anguilla Hotel and Tourism Association, thank you, Will and Sandra. I am happy to share as well that they have been working extremely closely with us in recent consultations that we've had to develop and implement a mandatory national training program for persons entering the hospitality and tourism sector. We realized that a lot of our young people, they're extremely passionate about hospitality or tourism, and sometimes, from high school, even persons that have left the school system, they enter the workforce with very limited knowledge, and sometimes, it's reflected in the way things are done. So with a mandatory training program, you will know, similar to the food handlers training, that once you've received employment in the hospitality and tourism sector, that you must be trained before embarking on your new journey. So we will partner with the, hopefully, with the larger properties such as Four Seasons, Aurora, and Cap Juluca, where we can have training done on a rotation basis. So if you've been employed for the new season, then you know, okay, when is the next mandatory training? So everybody will go to probably Four Seasons at the Learning and Development Center, receive that training. It's not a means of passing or failing, but it's a means of equipping our locals with the required knowledge that they needed in order to succeed in the industry. And this is just a recap from everything that was covered this morning to let you know where we are and that we accept the areas that further development will be needed on, and we will keep you engaged throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Robin Williams, for that recap of this morning's session. We will now break for lunch. Lunch is provided by Chef Sasha and team, which will be served in the training room downstairs. Please enjoy your meal and return promptly at 1 in an hour as we continue this afternoon session.
People come here for peace. It's a vibe that makes you say, yeah, maybe I could find what's been missing. Whatever that is, because we are all searching. Sometimes it's giving attention to an important bond. Other days it's just taking in the sun because that makes you feel so alive. You know, so alive. And seeing parts of history, and then yourself in that history. Boy, that's an experience like you've never had before. Whether you're with a friend or maybe you're going it alone, however you choose to take on the sights, know that here we are taking a bite out of every single piece of life. Let me tell you something. When you taste a grilled fish that has just come fresh out of water, there is nothing like it. There is nothing like it that could come to my mind. Anguilla is where you fall in love with whoever, but most importantly, with yourself. Because when you find yourself, end up finding things you didn't even know could be found.